Good evening and welcome to the January 7th, 2026 regular meeting of the Town of Erie Planning Commission. The time is now 6:30 p.m. and I'm calling this meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the secretary please call roll?
Commissioner Booth.
Here.
Commissioner Sawish.
Live from Town Hall.
Commissioner Dreckman.
Present.
Commissioner Burns.
Here.
Commissioner Bayham is absent. Vice Chair Brodus.
Here.
Chair Hemphill.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We have an agenda before us. Does staff have any changes?
No changes.
All right. Who would like to make a motion on tonight's agenda?
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. This brings us to approval of the November 19th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Do we have any changes or requests to make a motion?
Motion.
Second.
That was Booth and Brodus.
Thank you.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. This brings us to public comments portion of the meeting. This is for public comments intended for items not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the waiting room signed up or in the audience for public comments for the non-agenda items?
I do have two people in the waiting room, though there are no hands raised on that one, and I do have several people signed up, but it looks like it's for public hearing.
Okay. If they raise their hands, let me know, but I'll go through my public comment spiel when we get to that portion, which will be after the presentation.
Thank you.
So we'll go on to general business. We have one item on the agenda for general business. Again, my goal as always is to get us out of here by 8:30, so we'll do that. And the first item is 2026-1, a public hearing for a resolution of the Planning Commission of the Town of Erie recommending approval of the Canyon Creek Plan Development Amendment Number 11. And copy and paste that. The time is now 6:33 p.m. and I'm opening the public hearing. I'll turn it over to staff and applicant for their presentations.
Good evening, Commission. The case we're talking about this evening, as mentioned, is the Canyon Creek PD Amendment Number 11. The request this evening is just for approval of this PD amendment. It covers just under 2 acres. For reference, that's about the same size as the Walgreens that's at the corner of County Line Road and Erie Parkway. So it's not a huge lot. And the request is to change the allowed uses and update the associated development standards, which I will talk about a bit more on later slides. And currently the parcel is undeveloped. Where we sit in the overall development process, there is an existing, or it's part of the existing Canyon Creek PD. So this is an amendment, proposed amendment to the PD. After this, future required applications would still be a site plan, final plat, and then we would move into things like public improvement permits, building permits. And this evening, because this is a PD amendment, it will go to Town Council after a Planning Commission recommendation. I'll give a little bit more background and then talk about the proposal itself and finally get into the recommendation. The location is just at the southeast corner here of Erie Parkway and Miller Street in the Canyon Creek neighborhood. And you can see the sort of town center activity off to the east here. In terms of zoning, as I mentioned, it is part of the existing Canyon Creek PD, which covers quite a large area and has been amended a number of times for various filings as things have changed over the years. And this particular area actually has a little bit of an interesting history. So Originally, it was designated for a daycare use, and then that never developed. A developer or a new property owner came around in the mid-2010s and purchased the property, and then a PD amendment went through to add residential medium as an allowed use here. And a few years later, the property was platted, so it is platted, as you can see, for residential lots at the moment. That happened in 2019, I believe, and again, nothing has happened since then, so the property has remained vacant. The comprehensive plan, as you can see here, actually identifies this area as residential medium, not commercial. However, one of the key components of the new comprehensive plan was that it added secondary use categories with the intent of adding some supplementary and supporting uses for the primary use categories. And part of that was in response to feedback staff received during the comp plan process that some folks were interested in having more sort of neighborhood serving small scale commercial mixed in with existing neighborhoods. And as such, neighborhood commercial is one of the secondary uses that's listed under the residential medium category, which I know sounds contradictory, but and I'll talk about that a bit more on this slide. So we, in addition to having a primary use category and secondary supporting uses listed in the comp plan, there are a number of specific goals that relate to a project like this. One of those being activity centers, so the desire to ensure each neighborhood has an activity center for its residents. And that this doesn't necessarily mean like a community center, but somewhere that people might locate somewhere in the neighborhood that can provide services or shopping opportunities, those kind of things. Those are all sort of under this category of activity center. And then the second one you see here is encourage infill development. Of course, this would be an infill site here. It actually has utilities stubbed out to it already. And so in that way, it's sort of a prime opportunity to take advantage of investment in infrastructure that has already occurred. And then finally, this goal to cultivate a mix of local, unique, and creative businesses. And so the applicant can talk about their concept a bit more, but this would be sort of unique from other larger scale commercial developments in Erie and unique from Town Center in that it's going to be a small scale under 2 acres. And so the hope would be that it could, at least staff's hope would be that it could attract more of a smaller business type format here. Just to give you some additional context of the area, looking to the southeast, excuse me, you can see the existing Canyon Creek neighborhood in the background here, and the sidewalk is built. You can't really tell from this street view, but there also is a bus stop on Erie Parkway, and part of the concept would be to help take advantage of that, or that bus stop would be sort of a potential asset of this site, and that during the site plan and plat process, we could talk through potential improvements to that bus stop. Now I'll get into some more details of the proposal itself. So we're looking at the just this particular parcel in filing 5. So that's the whole focus of this PD amendment. And there are sort of two main goals of the PD amendment. The first is to amend the list of allowed uses. So currently it is only daycare, and that's sort of a holdover from as I was saying, when it was originally designated as a lot for daycare use, and then the medium density residential that was added in 2016. And so the residential use would be taken away. That would no longer be an allowed use on this property. Instead, the list would be more commercial. However, staff, in order to promote a smaller scale, a more walkable scale, not a highly not uses that were highly auto-oriented. There are a list that we've added to prohibited uses that would typically be allowed in a CC zone, but would not be allowed here. So that would include auto repair, car wash, light industrial, kennel, animal daycare, gas station, drive-throughs, those types of uses that would be a lot more auto-oriented. Because that's not the goal for this property, we wanted to specifically prohibit those, so the PD amendment would do that. And then the second goal of the PD amendment is associated with the first and the changing of the uses, but just to update the development standards from what they currently list, because that's oriented towards the duplex use or the townhouse use that was proposed previously. And so these development standards are fairly similar to our NMU zone category. However, the key changes are the addition of this 20-foot minimum setback from residential zone districts. So that would apply on the east side and on the south side where it abuts the residential neighborhood. And also the height limit, we asked that be brought down to 35 feet. And that is consistent with the height limit in the adjacent residential. And the intent of that is just to promote compatibility and scale. And then otherwise, any commercial development would still be subject to all the standards or development standards and guidelines in our UDC for that type of building. Now I will get into some of the recommendation. So it is a long list of approval criteria. We can talk through these if desired. I'll go through them a little more quickly here. Public notice was met, or public notice requirements were met for the hearing this evening. Also, the applicants held a neighborhood meeting last month, and some of the key questions and concerns that came up were in particular about the buffering and sort of how you make these two uses compatible, a commercial next to a residential. So in particular, lights from the buildings, headlights, how it affected homeowner privacy for adjacent houses, how landscaping could and should be used for screening, and then certainly some uncertainty over the future uses. As I mentioned, we've tailored the list of allowed uses a bit, but at this time, I think the applicant can talk about the concept a bit more, but of course we can't specify particular users, but we can try to narrow down the list of allowed categories to better get a result that we're looking for. And then of course, pedestrian safety is also a key concern, making sure there's adequate circulation and crosswalks and things like that, especially with kids headed to school, those kind of things. I'll come back to that one, but and so one of the things I wanted to keep in mind is since we're only looking at the PD amendment tonight, we're not approving any site plan. Staff have not approved a site plan yet. That's a future application process that we'll go through, and so I want to be clear that we definitely are going to take the feedback that we've heard from the neighborhood meeting and also public comments that have come in since, and take those seriously and make sure they're being integrated when we move into the site plan phase. And so that will be that site plan, depending on the size of the eventual proposed development. Our threshold is anything above 25,000 square feet comes back to you all at Planning Commission. Anything under 25,000 square feet is administrative review. And so there's a chance that that would just be an administrative review on the site plan. And then a subdivision plat will be required to sort of consolidate it because this land is currently subdivided into a bunch of individual residential lots at the moment. And so with that, staff do find that this application complies with the approval criteria and recommend Planning Commission approve the resolution, which would recommend approval to Town Council. And that concludes my presentation, and the applicant also has a presentation.
Good evening. My name is Dominic Schwartz, and I'm the Project Development Manager with Emerald Development. Emerald Development is a small family-run real estate development and investment firm based out of Boulder. The Gaidimi family has roots in Boulder County going back nearly 50 years, and our work is focused on small-scale housing, community-based neighborhood retail, and mixed-use projects along the Front Range. One of our current projects is the new Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art, which reflects our broader focus on context-sensitive, community-oriented development. With us tonight is our architect, Paul Anderson of Independent Architecture. Paul's work spans commercial, cultural, and housing projects with a strong emphasis on careful design that responds to its surroundings. We're here tonight regarding Canyon Creek PD Amendment Number 11, which applies to the 1.84 acre parcel at the corner of Erie Parkway and Mellor Street. We are requesting a PD amendment to allow a limited set of small-scale, neighborhood-serving commercial uses with clear, enforceable guardrails so the site can move forward in a way that is both feasible and compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. I would like to be clear about the stage we were at tonight. The concept design that we shared is a feasibility test based on code assumptions and site constraints. It demonstrates whether a one-story, low-intensity concept can physically work on the site. This is not a site plan, nor is it a building design. The image shown is approximately 17,000 square feet of building area in two single-story buildings of 8,500 square feet each, with a conceptual height of around 20 feet. By way of background, the site has been evaluated for residential and daycare uses. Unfortunately, under current construction and financing conditions, neither option pencils, and as a result, the parcel has remained stalled with no realistic path forward under the existing PD. What we are proposing is not destination retail and not a regional shopping center. It is intended to function as a small-scale, neighborhood-serving retail node, more like a walkable corner embedded in the neighborhood. Erie already has a larger mixed-use retail project underway nearby that is designed to be a regional hub. This proposal is intentionally the counterpoint to that. It is meant to be focused on smaller, local purveyors that often cannot compete with larger retailers. We held a neighborhood meeting and received additional written comments. The feedback has been consistent and thoughtful. Concerns about traffic, child safety, parking spillover, lighting, privacy, future tenants, and overall fit within a residential area. We take these concerns seriously, and we are responding in two ways. First, through enforceable PD-level guardrails, and second, through the technical work and design refinement that would follow if the use change is approved. Regarding the guardrails, we support the town's requested language to prohibit drive-through use of any kind. We also support clear limits on permitted uses, so this does not drift over time into something the neighborhood never agreed to. The goal is a narrow, local serving use set, not an open-ended commercial entitlement. As to the technical work and design refinement, the traffic study will focus on the issues raised by the neighbors. Access and turning movements from Mellor, pedestrian and bicycle conflict points, and the routes taken by the children. We are committed to working with the staff, hearing from the neighborhood residents, and implementing mitigation measures where needed. On the design side, we will pursue a buffer strategy that works with the topography. We heard clearly that simply trees and a fence will not address elevated sightlines for homes above the site. Special emphasis will be given to landscaping on the south and east edges where the site directly abuts homes. That edge condition is not a footnote for our team, rather this is the main design problem to solve. Our solution is a layered approach with year-round screening with evergreen components, berming where feasible, and placement of parking and service functions away from the most sensitive edges when possible. Lighting will also be designed to utilize full cutoff fixtures, practical pole heights, and controls that reduce after-hour impacts. We recognize the town's responsibilities to ensure this parcel evolves in a way that is feasible and consistent with the surrounding neighborhood. We are committed to continuing the dialogue with the community and the town, refining the plan based on this feedback, and putting real protection into the PD so the neighborhood isn't being asked to rely on trust alone. We appreciate the Commission's time, staff's guidance, and the community's engagement. And with that, I'll turn it over to Paul briefly to walk through the slideshow.
Good evening. I'm Paul Anderson, the architect on the project. Thank you for your time and hearing this tonight. I'm actually going to skip through a couple things here because this has all already been covered by other people, so there's no reason to repeat it or to orient you. You've sort of seen where we are. I think the main thing that I wanted to show is this site diagram, which Dominic referred to. This is, as has been mentioned a couple of times now, not a design for the site. It was just more like a feasibility study to see if an amount of one-story small-scale retail and the parking that's required by the town code currently would be able to fit on the site. And we kind of confirmed that with this diagram, but, obviously, is far from final. In fact, I think I would predict a lot of changes to it, based on what we've heard from people and, from the town so far. So, that is about it, I think, from us. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your presentations. The time is now 6:50 p.m. and we'll move to public testimony. And I know we have people signed up, so let me read this script. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. When you are called upon, you're required to state your name and place of residence for the record. If you are appearing on behalf of a person or organization, please provide the name and place of residence of the person or organization you are representing. Public comment is not an interactive question and answer forum, but rather a time for you to state your comments on a particular item or issue. You'll be given an audible warning when you have 20 seconds remaining. At the 3-minute mark, the light will turn red for in person, and I will ask that you finish your final sentence. If you are giving comments virtually, we will ask that you wrap up and mute your microphone. You may resume watching the meeting or disconnect at that time, and we'll start with in person.
Thank you. I have Bob F. first up.
Allowing me the time to speak. I support a small scale development like that.
Please state your name and.
Bob Finicero,
and
1585 Bain Court.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me the time. I support such a thing as long as it was respectful of the neighbors. 35 feet was a little bit of concern, but I believe that it'd benefit the community long after all available residential space has been built out. And I just want to put my support by it. I am close, and I worry more about the neighbors who are directly there, but I do appreciate it. 35 feet was the max. Did I hear that correct? Yes. Height.
Thank you.
Okay, next I have Paula Martin.
Good evening. I'm Paula Martin. I live at 688 Matthews Circle. So our northwest part of our yard backs up to that property. I don't support commercial use of it. I just think that it's a strange place for that. It would seem like additional residential might be proposed like it was before, but it would just change the entire feel of our whole neighborhood. And I also wasn't aware of the previous neighborhood meeting, but I'd love a chance to discuss that separately, just on a more personal basis with how it will affect our property and our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, I have Matt Flood.
Hi, Matt Flood, 609 North Bashir. I also live next to the proposed change. We've been there since 2005. A lot of the concerns have already been shared. I'm struggling with it being commercial just because it seems like a commercial island inside a residential area. When we moved in, it was designated as the daycare, which made sense, and we agreed with that. Even when it changed to medium density, that was higher, but still it made more sense to be residential in that area. Also concerned that what commercial would be there with the town center being so close, and there's so much commercial that's going to be right down the street. I'm just struggling. Like they were highlighting small grocery store and such, but there's already a promise of a grocery store that's right down the street. The other concern is no control of businesses. My fear would be that it's commercial, but it's like a second tier commercial, because anybody that wants to be commercial, they'll want to be in a larger district like it is. Traffic, obviously, there's only one entry into that at the end of the property. Traffic is already starting to back up on Erie Parkway in the mornings as it is, plus with the kids going to schools, and then the lights, noise, activities and such, different hours. I think there was mention of restaurants, noise, smells, people coming in and out later at night are all concerns. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next up, I have Lance Dawson.
Hello, my name is Lance Dawson. I live at 743 South Bashir Court, so about 2 blocks from the development. And sorry, didn't really prepare anything and just doing this on a whim. But as he spoke during the presentation, he said that this is within the Canyon Creek neighborhood. It's a residential neighborhood. We moved up to Erie from Westminster because we liked the open areas, the lack of development and construction everywhere, that there's not a strip mall in every corner like there is in Westminster. And since we moved up here 6 years ago, every corner seems like there's more and more development. We moved up here to raise our family, to be able to walk to schools, ride our bikes, and we walk by that property every day with our 2-year-old daughter. And eventually we'll commute on foot to Red Hawk Elementary School. So traffic is definitely a concern. As you see on that development, the only entrance is off of Meller right now, not off Erie Parkway, because it's dangerous to enter right after a light to make a right-hand turn into there. So there'll absolutely be an increase of traffic on the residential street. And every day there's families and kids and little kids learning to ride their bike to go to school. And I think that'll, one, pose a danger. There's already a ton of retail development, and it's great to see the city expanding and growing, but there's already retail development in large swaths of land. This is a 1.8 acre site. With all the development, you guys can't guarantee occupancy. What happens in 5-10 years down the road when things slow down. Westminster has, I think, a 32 or 33% retail vacancy rate right now. So as you build and grow, businesses come and go. But that site, again, it's within a neighborhood. I don't support it turning into commercial. And again, there's already a ton of retail, a ton of options and opportunity. So I'm against the development of that area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, I have Sharon Kent.
Hi, I'm Sharon Kent, and I live on Bain Drive, and I just want to reiterate what my neighbors are saying about wanting to maintain the quiet residential neighborhood that we have and keep the commercial activity down on County Line Road, Erie Parkway, further down away from the neighborhood to keep it safe for kids who are traveling to school at the elementary school down the street, and then just also keeping the neighborhood quiet and free of traffic coming in from other places. We'd like to keep that commercial activity away from our neighborhood so we can maintain that private, calm neighborhood feeling. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, Linnell Gilliland.
Hi, Lunell Gilliland, 730 Matthews Circle. I do not support this plan, several reasons that have been mentioned. The traffic increase. This is a street that people walk their dogs on, little kids walk, little kids have bicycles. The noise, the light pollution. Also concerned if this really is a goal to have a walkability neighborhood center, why it needs 86 to 100 parking spots, which I believe I heard in the original presentation a couple weeks ago. I think that kind of defeats the purpose. And I think having a grocery store and already 4 or 5 coffee shops in Erie, we probably have all that covered already. So rather than continue to add commercial, keep the town feeling of Erie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, I have Garrett Matthews.
Hi, I'm Garrett Matthews. I'm at 730 South Bashir Court. Just also wanted to voice opposition to this rezoning due to similar concerns with traffic increases along Meller, privacy for the homes nearby, and then particularly safety, especially with respect to children who often, it's just the most common route to get to school there. So we don't want to see safety concerns in our neighborhood. We don't want our neighborhood changing to have this commercial space that'll completely change the feel of the neighborhood. The applicant mentioned guardrails, so this wouldn't potentially drift into something the neighborhood never agreed to, but the neighborhood is stating right now we don't agree to this in its current state. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up is just if this resolution is approved, it's certifying that it satisfies criteria that it seems like the public does not agree is being satisfied in a few points. Point 3 on that resolution is that it's improving public health, safety, and general welfare. And there seems to be overwhelming opposition in this meeting, the neighborhood meeting, all the submitted comments from the public that this is not improving the general welfare. And at point 13, similar, that this would be modifications are permitted in exchange for greater public benefits. And same thing, we're seeing the public is saying this is not a benefit to our community. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up I have Ryan Durfee. Sorry if I messed that up.
You're close.
I'm Ryan Durfee. I live at 601 North Bashir. I back directly to the lot that's being developed. I'll echo what everybody else has said. I'm opposed to the development. All the houses that back to that lot, they're all partial walkouts. So my main floor sits 6 feet above grade. So when I'm standing in my living room, I'm 12 feet above grade. When I'm in my second floor, there's no amount of buffering that's going to stop you from all those people from seeing 100 cars get parked every day going in and out. And most of the lots that back to that are very shallow lots. A lot of them are 20 feet deep. So that means when these people are sitting on their decks at night, they're going to be listening to cars and people parking and talking all night long. Not just, during the day, during business hours, but, these shops are going to stay open until probably 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. There's just an irreparable loss of privacy that I think is just detrimental to the directly abutted neighbors. I don't want to say that no amount of commercial spaces would be approvable to me. Like, I'm generally pro mixed use. What I think would be thoughtful was more like what was designed further down the street at the corner, where they had transitions from single family to multifamily to office to commercial and retail with parking. There's no buffer here. There's no transition from single family down to more intensive uses. And, to me, mixed use on this lot that would be appropriate would be, multifamily all around the outskirts, and then maybe 1 or 2 small retail spots up on the corner with limited parking for walkability. That would be something that I could get behind and say, okay, that's not a huge deal to me. It's not a huge amount of traffic that's going to be increased, and there's not a lot of visual and audible nuisance to the neighborhood. That would be something to me that was like well thought out and well planned if there were those transitions in place. So I don't want to come off as absolutely not, but that is what I think thoughtful development would look like. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, next in person, I have Kevin Cheek.
Yes, thank you. I just want, Kevin Cheek, I live at 1679 Bain Drive. I wanted to add my voice in opposition to this plan for a number of reasons, many of which have been addressed already, such as the safety of children walking to and from Red Hawk Elementary. That is the main route along which they walk. The increased traffic, we already have a problem with people speeding onto Miller and slowing down to 25 by the time they get to Laner Drive eventually, or maybe not. And another issue is that right now we still have a lot of wildlife, owls, hawks, etc., in our neighborhood. But with the construction along County Line right now, that has already been diminished. And I'm worried that the additional light pollution and sound pollution from the businesses would make it less hospitable to the wildlife, especially the owls. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, last in-person sign up I have is Niall Griffin.
Thank you. I'm Niall Griffin. I live at 645 North Bashir Court. I'm actually in support of this. I feel like while I understand people's concerns, I'm not saying that they don't make sense, but something I've seen Erie seem to do is we sequester. We put businesses, we're trying in areas that end up making it feel like strip malls. And I think it actually has negative impacts on the community development side of things. And having this, while I understand, yes, it might change a little bit of the nature of the community that I currently live in. I too have a daughter. I'm going to be going down these ways. Like I don't actually see the risk increasing to such a substantial or negative level that all of a sudden our town is going to collapse, which does feel like what is kind of being said here. And I think there's a lot of assumptions being made that are actually not hugely factually based. And I also think there's a lot of concerns that equally could occur if we did do residential there. And so while I understand the concerns, I personally would like to see this in my community because I go to Lafayette a lot. And one of the things I love about Lafayette is that there is this mixed zoning and that you can go just literally down the block and you have places like East Simpson, the Red Queen, the lumber yards. And I know there's tensions there. I'm not saying that there won't be, but I also know there's a great opportunity to see communities increase and grow. And we talk about having this interest in community. And yet it seems like this is a moment of not in my backyard, literally. And so while I'm not abutted against it, I'm also part of the cul-de-sac that is going to be most impacted. And I just want to throw my support behind it, even though it does seem to be in opposition to most of the voices here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, online I have Jeremy Tieber, and let me pull into the meeting.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Jeremy Tiber. I live at 628 North Bashir Court. I'd like to add my voice to this as well. I think that this sounds good in theory, and I think there are people that are for this that only see one side of it and have good intentions, but I think there's a lot of negative stuff that goes on with this. I'd like to echo the sentiment that a lot of people have already said here today. One of my biggest concerns is the impact towards the school that's been mentioned. We're currently not on a bus route to Red Hawk, and that's in large part because of the fact that there is no commercial between here and the school. It's just residential, and it's safer for our kids to walk. If there's a lot more kids walking and there's a lot more cars coming in and turning into a parking lot that is a normal walking route for our kids to go to that school, it drastically increases the danger to our children. There's already flags that have been put up on that intersection by the scouts because to try and minimize the danger of that intersection, putting commercial there is going to add to that problem. Also, anytime you add commercial to an area, crime increases, foot traffic increases. There's going to be a lot more foot traffic through our neighborhood and specifically our cul-de-sac because there's not a barrier to get through there and people will cut through there. There's going to be a lot more people passing through our houses and our cul-de-sac where our children play. And as young children that are new into our cul-de-sac start to grow up and play in our cul-de-sac, there's going to be a lot more people coming through. There's going to increase danger to those. As people have mentioned, a lot more noise and light pollution is going to occur. If we have real estate and commercial things going on there, there's going to be stuff coming into our houses late at night. That obviously isn't a desirable activity. But in a large part, like commercial sounds great. We all want something nearby. We're getting something nearby. Just a few blocks away, the Erie Town Center is going through their whole development right now. The need to add commercial into an area that is not supposed to be commercial just a couple blocks away seems incredibly unnecessary considering all of the drawbacks that are there. Also, the town's already lied to us twice about what's going on with this lot. When we all moved into this neighborhood, it was supposed to be a daycare. And then we got lied to and it got changed to more dense housing. When that happened, it's now getting changed to something else. Had our HOA known about the ability to change the zoning there, we likely would have been interested in purchasing it for our neighborhood, for an HOA, perhaps a pool, perhaps an HOA community building. I think there's a lot of things that could have gone in there that we would have been very apt to go for
20
that would not be commercial that we didn't know. Additionally, the applicants didn't seem to have said, we're going to do this notified us on the 25th. There was a neighborhood meeting on the 18th I didn't know about. I got notified after that. People that did go to that said they didn't say any of the stuff that they said today. The planning meeting didn't line up with what was said today. So I just like, the board and the council to understand that if you had something behind your house and you were promised it was going to be X, then it got changed to Y, and now it's going to be changed to Z, and it's going to negatively impact your environment, increase traffic through your neighborhood, you would probably be opposed to this as well.
Thank you.
I have two more folks left in the waiting room. If you would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand and I can bring you into the meeting. And I have no hands raised and nobody else signed up on the list.
Okay, no one's signed up. Does anyone want to make a comment who hasn't signed up? Okay. The time is now 7:11 p.m. Would applicant and staff like to make a response to any of the public comments? Again, there won't be any discussion, but if you want to make any direct commentary before we start asking questions.
Can you come up to the mic?
And there will be time. We'll be asking questions too. It's just part of the process.
I've taken in everything that I'm hearing, and we're taking our notes, and we can address the parking when people have questions.
Okay. Then we will move to commissioner questions. We'll do the same process we've been doing for the last few meetings with 2 questions around the board, and then we'll go back for final questions. Anybody want to volunteer to start, or should I call in someone?
I can go.
All right, Commissioner Booth.
Thank you for the presentations, and thank you for such a good turnout from the community. I think my first question that I have is probably for staff. On one of the slides, it talked about prohibited uses. And my question on that one is that an exhaustive list, or is that like a small list?
Let me pull that slide back up. But before I get to the slide, that is sort of a summarized list. So the full list is in the actual PD zoning amendment on the, let's see what page that would be. It's on the second page, and that should be, which attachment is your 5th attachment? Should be your 5th attachment in the packet.
Is that proposed PD amendment?
Correct. Okay. Correct. Yep. So that's the longer list, but I think that this list on the slide is most of them. And so I think if there were specific uses that the commission felt strongly about, I think that could be a conversation of possible amendments or possible changes to make before town council. I won't speak on behalf of the applicant, but if the applicant agreed to do that, if there were specific uses that that you wanted to add to the list, we could talk about that, certainly.
Okay. I'm going to ask my 2 questions, and then I'm going to go review that. And so I might have more questions on that.
Of course.
I think on the it's on the application and narrative that I have a question on. Somewhere in there, it states that this is really just a minor change. Can you go into how this is classified as a minor change?
It it may say minor in the narrative, but there's no process difference. So under our code and our review structure, all PD amendments are treated the same way. So they all go through the normal staff review and then the full public hearing process of Planning Commission and Town Council. So so that's not a meaningful distinction, I guess, for a PD amendment. They're all treated the same.
Okay.
Yep.
Can I ask a very small question? Sorry. If this gets approved tonight, it goes to Town Council for further approval. And then because of the size, will it really never come back out?
I
before us?
don't know that for sure. So I think that depends on, so just for example, the sort of code evaluation, this diagram shows two buildings that are 8,500 square feet. And so if something, obviously the applicant said this isn't their exact plan. If something of this scale were to come back, that total square footage would be 17,000 square feet, and that would fall under our threshold to require a planning commission review. So that would be a staff review. However, I do think it is possible that a 25,000 square foot building could be part of the consideration, or that may be the grand total of what's proposed. So in that scenario, that would hit the threshold. So I guess what I'm saying is this probably sits around the threshold. So it kind of depends on what the eventual proposal would be about whether it would go to planning commission or whether it would stay under that 25,000 square feet threshold and therefore be administrative.
Okay.
Also, the director can refer any site plan to you all.
That's true.
Sure.
So just keep that in mind.
We'll go down the line. Commissioner Salish, do you want to go next?
Okay, just some administrative procedural questions for staff. Per the user guide for PDs and amendments, did our planning and development director waive the PD requirements for the following: assessment of impact report, general conceptual utility report, threatened and endangered species, habitat and wetlands report, cultural, archaeological, and historical resource report, and the environmental hazard reports?
Some of them. So some of those are in your packet. So the assessment of impact report is in the packet. There's a conceptual utility, although that utility report, I believe, is what was generated with the previous concept of townhomes. There's a geological study. The endangered species was not required on this because of the lot size, because it was under 2 acres. And then neither was the archaeological. So that was there was an archaeological and cultural history report done with the initial Canyon Creek, or with earlier filings of Canyon Creek. So we didn't require it for this. That assessment of impact report is there. Oh, there's also a market study in there. I believe that's one of the items listed in that submittal checklist. So we did review the impact study, or assessment of impact study, and it is very brief. I think at this point, because the development is so conceptual and they don't have users lined up, it would have been hard to really pin down a number for traffic estimates and things like that. So we will require, if approved, we would require at site plan and plat a full traffic impact analysis, and then same with utilities, same with grading and a drainage study, all those things. That was a long answer, but
Okay, that's suffice. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so this is another procedural question, and may have the assistant town attorney weigh in on this one. There have been comments about notice. I am seeing the 2 notifications that were included within our agenda items. There is a notice that was issued, attested to on the 2nd of December for a neighborhood meeting on the 19th. I am also seeing that there is, and this is the one I have question on, public hearing notice for this body, the Planning Commission, is saying notice is hereby given that on Wednesday, December 19th at 6:30 p.m., there will be a public hearing for this application, and this was published on the 17th of December. So this was issued for Wednesday, December 19th, and published on the 17th. Is that within the window that is required for public notification for these hearings?
That is a typo on the public hearing notice. So, because there was no hearing on December 19th, that should have been the January 7th tonight's hearing.
So what was sent to residents? Or what was published? Because this is attested from our clerk's office that this was indicating Wednesday, December 19th, published in the Hometown Weekly.
Yeah, so that's the newspaper notice. The public hearing notice that went out through the mailer did have the correct address, but yeah, that's a typo on the newspaper notice that went out.
Okay, so for the Assistant Town Attorney, is this sufficient for public notice as required by our UDC?
Yeah, because we never had the public hearing on that date. When the agenda, that meeting was canceled too. That was also, that was published on the town's website. So.
Okay, do we know when this was published to the town's website? Because there's two aspects. There is the applicant who needs to provide notice, and then there is also the town that needs to provide notice. What is this suffice within 24 hours?
When it was canceled? Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm saying because this was the 17th that it was issued for public notice for a meeting on the 19th. Does this fall to the 24-hour notification that this body will hold a meeting, or is it required for a specific number of days prior to a public hearing for a notice to be issued?
Can you rephrase your question, because there was never a hearing on the 19th, so
Correct.
The hours or days wouldn't have mattered here.
But this was noticed for the 19th. It was initially noticed for the 19th. Yes, I understand the meeting did not happen. If there was a meeting for the 19th, was this sufficient? Because we basically have to go to what this said. It was issued out the 17th for a meeting on the 19th.
That's incorrect, that we have to go based on what it said. If the hearing wasn't happened, it's a moot point whether it would meet that standard, because we never had a hearing on the 19th. The town publicly noticed that the meeting on the 19th was canceled. So it doesn't really matter.
Okay. I'll continue in a moment, so thank you. Okay.
We'll go around to Commissioner Dreckman.
Okay, this is for the town. So I know you said the traffic analysis is hard to predict just because we don't know, but based on the opposition from the neighborhood, has it been considered that extensive, like another traffic study should be included before? I know like it's hard to predict, but maybe just predicting the more, traffic density development there, I guess. It just seems like that might be something the town could consider before changing.
It's sort of a chicken and egg situation. So when we're at this PD amendment stage, there's such a wide range of uses that would generate pretty different traffic volumes, like a gas station versus a yoga studio or something like that just had a couple classes a day. So it's tricky without having a particular use in mind, and that's why we usually require that at the site plan and plat stage. But I know that for residents that creates some uncertainty, because that also is the stage where we would recommend traffic improvements if need be. So the nearby intersection is already signalized, but it could include different striping, possibly crossing improvements for pedestrians, those kind of things. And so that's the stage we would look at that type of thing. So it is hard. I think the answer is that we will expect to look through all of those details and get sort of an exact estimate. Estimate is kind of contradictory, I guess.
Yeah, no.
A more precise estimate of what the actual square footage of the uses and the specific traffic counts we could expect all of that we for sure will be going through at site plan and plat if approved, if this is approved. Yeah.
Okay, and then my second question, the terms like neighborhood commercial versus general commercial are used, and I understand when you said neighborhood commercials, like ideally smaller businesses, but is there a exact definition or, some, just that makes it really clear the difference between, down the street with more general commercial and this? And how enforceable is that?
So I think sort of two answers to that. So I think the way I've been using neighborhood commercial is probably a less precise definition. The way I'm using it, I think our comp plan does have specific definitions for neighborhood commercial. Sorry, I'm just scrolling into it. So neighborhood commercial includes small-scale retail, office, and services and locations that serve as neighborhood hubs where residents can meet their daily needs. As opposed to corridor commercial. Corridor commercial includes commercial businesses that draw people from the region along highways and arterial roads, big box stores, that kind of thing. So those are definitions that are in our comp plan. Although I think in this situation, I'm probably not being super precise with my language, but when we're saying neighborhood, we're thinking about uses that are not drive-through or not overly auto-oriented.
Okay, thank you. That's good for now.
Commissioner Burns?
This is probably, well, maybe more for the applicant, but also the town. Talked about the interest in making this a more walkable kind of commercial site. Why is there so many parking spots?
That is basically off of code from Erie.
Okay.
Actually required 85 spots. I think somehow they put in 86.
Is that still, because I know we're trying to get rid of those minimums to reduce?
Yeah, so those minimums are still in the book. So the minimum off-street parking for it, again, it varies a little bit depending on which particular type of commercial use, but retail is a minimum of 1 space per 200 square feet of development. Office, I believe, is 1 per 300 square feet. That being said, I think because we know we are working on, or potentially in the future working on UDC updates to take a hard look at some of these parking estimates and determine whether they're really accurately calculated. That, and we do have a section in our UDC that allows the Director of Planning and Development to look into minor modifications for parking that could reduce some of that minimum parking requirement, particularly in situations where there is public transit that could be more highly utilized, where the applicant, or in exchange for your applicant providing things like additional bike parking or sort of improved bike parking, like a shelter or something like that. So there are quite a few alternatives that we could look at if appropriate, sort of appropriate trade-offs are made. And
I think just in the spirit of trying to promote that kind of neighborhood feel, I think just the visual, and I know this is not a site plan, that creates I think a little bit of the anxiety that there's going to be a lot of vehicle traffic. Although I also note that if this was a daycare, you probably have something similar if you look just down the street.
Similar times as kids going to and from school. But I was also speaking with ownership today too, and the consensus was we would be more than happy to apply for an exemption to have fewer parking spaces.
Okay. Second question, and again, with the graphic that's shown on the screens, I know the building maximum height is reduced somewhat from commercial to 35 feet, and that was noted, I think, in at least one of the public comments. This graphic indicates the intent is a one-story building?
Yeah, at roughly 20 feet.
Okay. Is there, I guess, any intention, thought that there might be a multi-story structure there? And because I'm trying to address the concern that visibility-wise, especially for the neighbors who back onto it, with the existing 6-foot fences, and I think the trees that are proposed along this a one-story building may not be as much of a visual blight as a multi-story up to 35 feet.
Yeah.
So that may be some of the concern as well.
Yeah, and this, as envisioned, is exactly a one-story building with a maximum, roughly, again, of 20 feet.
Thank you.
Is that two? Okay. I'll just keep going and you'll go last. Vice Chair. In our comprehensive plan, this is for staff, we have commentary about corridors of special interest, this being on Erie Parkway. What considerations were made for this proposal for that corridor?
So because we're not necessarily getting into materials at this stage, I think one of the main considerations was in the building placement, and so that, in addition to ensuring that we had more of a setback from the residential area, on the other side, sort of on the converse, the 0 foot setbacks for front and side that would be on Meller Street and Erie Parkway, I think was partially envisioned to help ensure that or encourage at least that there's a street presence on Erie Parkway and or Meller. And that I think is sort of part of this concept of not having along Erie Parkway a predominance of parking in these types of, in this particular commercial development, not having parking up against Erie Parkway so that it presents more of a attractive face, I guess, if you will. I think that was one of the main considerations. We also thought about that in terms of use. So, for a special or area of special consideration, knowing that this is pretty close to Erie Town Center, I think the thought process was that in addition to integrating with the neighborhood, it could receive extra walkability and possibly transit use. And therefore, that was part of the consideration in sort of picking this list of uses too that would be less auto-oriented and more pedestrian-oriented, hopefully.
Okay, and then I have all sorts of questions as well, but I will go with parking because seeing the site plan with all the parking spaces, understanding that is the minimums. In our code, we do have parking reductions available in mixed-use districts, but this isn't a mixed-use district. But we do have a PD. So do we have a lot more flexibility to reduce parking because it is a PD and say we can ignore sections of the code and not have minimum parking, or how?
We do actually, through a PD. We could actually, through a PD, set a lower parking requirement. We can supersede standards that are in the UDC.
Okay. I'll revisit that one, but that is my two. So Vice Chair Broadus.
Okay, so first is a comment, not a question, which is just, you do have things about traffic counts in the narrative that was written up, but it only talks about Erie Parkway, it doesn't talk about Meller. And the concerns are more about Meller and what's going down there. So if this does proceed, I would look for information on the impact to the neighborhood street, just to let you know that. In the picture that's up, it seems like you do have listed a 20-foot buffer or setback in the south, but not in the east. Does the 20-foot, and I know this is conceptual, does the 20-foot apply towards buildings or the lot? Does that question make sense?
No, it does. Or yes, it does. The way it's written, that setback would apply to buildings and not flat work, or not parking.
Okay. Because it would be nice if we could in the PD, if it goes forward, to do something, because the parking spaces looks like within like a foot of the property line.
Yeah, and
I know it's conceptual.
Sorry. Yep. And since it's conceptual, I'm not sure actually that the building on the north side is meeting the 20-foot setback either. So
and a related question is the way this is laid out. It sort of implies that loading and unloading into the I don't know, the building closer to Erie Parkway would happen through the front door, which seems unusual. Normally, there's like a back door for loading, particularly if that's the grocery store. So things like that we should consider as we're moving. Does that count as two questions, or is?
Didn't really feel like two.
Okay. So the other question is the buffer and fencing and things like that. There was a public comment about people walking through the yards, and I would expect there would be some type of fencing around this property.
There's an existing 6-foot fence that belongs to the residential neighborhood that rings this whole site, and there aren't any planned pass-throughs through that. And in fact, I don't know that it would make sense to add an additional privacy fence on the commercial site, but there might be a need for some kind of low fence, especially to block headlights and things like that. But yeah, I guess that was all I was going to say on that.
Okay. Yeah. That's my two for now. I'll probably have more later. But.
Great. We'll just continue down the line.
Okay.
And
Do we have any other examples in Erie of neighborhood commercial?
That specific category, I believe, was sort of newly described in the updated comp plan. So I don't know that I have any examples off the top of my head that have developed under that sort of designation. I think maybe other planners in the room could help me think of things of similar scale that.
I have one suggestion. Close to where we work out of in North Boulder, there's a place called Lucky's Market on the corner of Broadway and Quincy Avenue, and it's like right in the middle of surrounded by a neighborhood, and it's a really nice. It's got a nice little grocery store. It's got a nice bakery, some really local shops, a breakfast place that serves breakfast and lunch. And the parking is not as robust as this picture portrays. I'm only about a half a mile away from there, but we see the way that the community really leans on that property, and I would suggest that maybe we, take a look at that on Google Maps. It's pretty interesting.
So the Erie Commons area is probably a good example of that scale.
Is that more of the, like where the credit union and Ziggy's, like more that side?
Mhm.
Okay. And I live in Erie Commons, so I do have some of that. I think my next is more like a comment, and it'll kind of talk about the parking also. I would really like to see some adjustments to the parking. All of those spaces along the fence, to me, are unnecessary. Even behind that building seems a little overkill as well. So that's just a comment. And then the other one, and I know this isn't a site plan, but it was in the application materials, but it did talk about a grocery. And I'm really having a hard time understanding that concept with knowing at Town Center there is an anchor store much larger. So can we talk about the grocery store? Is that just an idea at this point? What's a small scale grocery?
Yeah. For us, it was it was something that we thought, a walkable neighborhood store that's not, is not as robust as some of the other stores that are available further down the way.
It's like a small.
Nothing is set in stone, right?
Yeah.
This is all very much conceptual.
Like, do we consider like a small scale grocery for something like this, something like Niwot Market, like that? I mean, that's pretty big even.
Circle K. No, not a Circle K. We're staying away from the retail, like gas station type idea. I'm not familiar with the Niwot market that you're referencing.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems bigger. But do we know what a small scale grocery, what that is?
Right.
Personally, I think maybe I'm speculating a little bit. I think it would be a struggle to find a grocer that could fit on this small of a format.
I think it's probably more of like a specialty grocery or something more along the lines of like, I don't know if you've been to Mountain Fountain and Hygiene, where they have a little bit of like dry goods and some things, but then they also serve sandwiches, you know, that sort of smaller scale.
Yeah, if you're familiar in Denver, like Marchik is in the neighborhoods, and it's a kind of a gourmet
Yeah.
bodega.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay. Okay.
The bodega.
I'll pause.
Let's keep moving on down.
Okay, so just to clarify a question that was previously asked, Commissioner Booth, you had asked, are there other locations that have the neighborhood commercial, correct? So this was previously a land use class that was available in the 2015 version. There are a few locations that had this. I believe they continued on, but there's very limited. They're all along county line, as well as where the medical building is on Erie Parkway, and also where the UMB former citywide in that area. That's all neighborhood commercial.
Yeah, that's Erie Commons.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so can you I'm seeing some differing verbiage in terms of the application materials as well as the applicant's presentation in terms of what might go there. Obviously saying that this is conceptual in nature. The applicant presentation notes will provide commercial, business, retail, food, beverage. And then there is a note about this saying that anticipated tenants are a local market, other storefront retail. Talking about the market will offer fresh produce, small selection of groceries, prepared foods. And then we have the actual applicant narrative that materials page 10 says is designed to serve the surrounding neighborhood with retail dining and service oriented. So are we looking at something that is sit down restaurants when we carved out specifically the restaurant drive through, or what was it? We carved out the
So the allowed uses would be those on page 2 of the proposed PD amendment.
Plus
that's what you're considering.
Plus everything in community commercial.
Correct.
That isn't prohibited or
Right.
carved out
Right. That doesn't
explicitly.
have the in. It's a little.
Okay,
It's an
so-
older PD.
So there's a large number of potential uses, including restaurants that could potentially go there.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, food and beverage services. One
Okay. Is that my understanding of what is currently proposed? We could have restaurants there. You could hypothetically have a Chili's. I'm not saying a Chili's is going to go there. You could hypothetically have a Chili's there.
I mean, we couldn't fit a Chili's into these buildings. I think so. I think like just judging by the scale, that the like the intention is for it to be much lighter, smaller, more specialized than that. And yeah, I don't think we can like I say we, but I don't think the owners could meet the demands of most of the larger a larger chain type.
I could
of
see like a
restaurant.
bagel shop, to come in for a sandwich. So it's something of that, stature. But I don't think that this site allows for a real sit down. Well, I shouldn't.
I mean, I can also say just architecturally, like a commercial kitchen would take up like a large amount of space in this. So I think if there is going to be anything, it's going to be something that's like a lot lighter in terms of the preparation and like all the required infrastructure that you would need for that, because it just won't fit.
Correct, but
anything bigger.
But staff, correct me if I'm wrong, we're approving zoning. We're allowing any use that is available through the community commercial that is not prohibited. It is, you could have one building there, you could have multiple buildings there, as long as it fits within the PD. This is what we are approving. We're providing a blank space of this is what can be done here in this, correct?
Correct, yeah, so the allowed land uses would be anything in CC that's not expressly prohibited. And that's the list on page 2.
So hypothetically, if the current applicants aren't able to get something off the ground and they were to shift ownership to another individual, the next owner could walk in as long as it is facilitated by the PD within the guidelines of the PD. It could be anything that is basically allowed, and it is extensive in terms of what is potentially available.
Correct, yeah, so it would, they would be subject to the same rules in the PD, so, CC is you're right, a pretty long list of allowed uses, but it would be, none of the gas station, none of the car washes, drive-throughs, anything like that.
Okay, and for administrative procedural question, if this were recommended for approval or denial tonight, it still goes up to the town council. If it were hypothetically approved by the town council, what are the next steps after that? Where is the application seen? Where is there a chance for public comment to see what the actual final build out would look like?
So the next steps would be, if the PD amendment were approved, the next steps for the applicant would be a site, at minimum, a site plan application and a subdivision plat application. And the subdivision plat would be an administrative review. However, it likely would go on town council's agenda or a consent agenda for a development agreement. And if there were any additional public utility easements being dedicated. So the plat would go to town council on consent agenda. The site plan related to that discussion we had earlier, I can't say for certain, depending on where the square footage of the final proposal lands, whether it would be a site plan that comes to planning commission through a public hearing process, or whether it would be under the 25,000 square feet and therefore be an administrative review. So if it were an administrative review, our code does not require a subsequent neighborhood meeting. Our code does require a subsequent neighborhood meeting if it were to come to planning commission.
Carrie, if I can interrupt too,
Sure.
the director can require a neighborhood meeting for any site plan too. So if you all wanted to add that as a condition, along with referring the site plan to you all.
Chair, I know I got 2 questions, so if you want to keep running through.
I'll give you one more.
There's just one. Okay, so, let's keep going, because this is going to be one that rolls into another, so yes.
All right.
Okay.
Commissioner Dreckman.
Is there any way within a PD to add restrictions on operating hours or lights installed? I believe based on the comments, if it was approved, that would.
May be a legal question. I would think that a
Is that-
PD
Can a PD outline that?
could a PD restrict
Like everything
operating
has to close
hours?
by 8 p.m. and, the lights can't face out or something. Like
Our
in theory,
code
in theory, could that be added?
already doesn't allow you to, shine floodlights.
I just
on
mean like maybe.
You have like
lights at a
dark
certain
sky,
height.
dark sky
Or
lighting.
like
Yeah,
dark-
you can
or
restrict
So it
something.
won't actually, like it actually literally focuses straight down. as
Right.
opposed to, or you can even angle it so it's away from
We don't have
the
any
sides of the property.
Okay. Yeah.
Is something that
Yeah.
we're
The-
committed to doing.
That's great. Yeah.
To-
I mean, you
to
seem
s-
great. You could just decide to move tomorrow and then someone else could come
Yeah,
in
okay,
and,
fair,
you know what I
fair,
mean? So I
totally.
think that's more kind of what we're also
I got you.
establishing.
I think there's probably two separate questions and 2 separate answers. So lighting, our code, our existing code does restrict or does place limitations and guidelines on it. So lighting at site plan, the applicant has to provide us a lighting plan. And so we look at that to make sure that lighting at the property line is not over 1 foot candle, which is a strange unit of measurement for brightness. But essentially we do look to make sure that there's not, at least on the lighting plan, that there's not lighting that will be spilling off property. So that's sort of the lighting question as far as operating
And
hours.
I would just add, yes, you can restrict the height of light fixtures
Yeah.
in the PD.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. I just-
Yeah, you're saying going more restrictive than what's ready.
Than what's in the code.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
Okay. And then this other question is more a procedural question. because it was brought up by the public comment. With the current use that's been in place for almost 10 years, is a neighborhood park or a neighborhood pool would have been allowed under the current zoning, right, of residential?
I don't
Or
I don't
like-
believe, I think the way the previous PD was written was that instead of, so this amendment is sort of like a list of things that are prohibited. I think the previous was a list of uses that are allowed, and I think it was just exclusively residential or medium residential and daycare. So I'm not sure that land use would have allowed, the previous land, or existing, I guess, today's land use would
But any
actually allow for a
annexed
park.
lot with a PD at any time can apply for a change.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so
And there
another
have been a lot
person
in
was interested in it,
Canyon
just
Creek.
could've-
Yeah.
Okay, that was just my clarification. Okay.
Just to clarify, you would ask the question about limiting hours.
Yeah, limiting operating hours within the PD.
Was that answered? I don't recall.
Yeah, he said yes.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
said it-
Yeah.
Yeah, further restrictions.
Thank you.
are allowed.
Commissioner Burns?
Cut just a couple of points, and I may have missed this, so I apologize if you already answered this. Did you get an answer from RTD about whether there needs to be an improvement in the stop, like a dedicated pull-off lane?
We did not get, I don't recall RTD commenting on that through the process. One of our transportation engineers, Miguel, made the comment to me that that is something he desires from sort of our perspective, whether or not RTD sees a need for an improvement there. I mean, I think we have to work with them either way when we're making improvements to their stop, but I don't know the answer off the top of my head about a pull-off lane. I know that what Miguel was talking to me about was a improved shelter, because I don't think there's even a bench out there today. It's just a sign.
Just noting that, obviously, that would change the site plan, specifically where that sidewalk kind of comes along there, but it's just, I saw that note in I think the town review comments. Similar kind of comment, there was something that noted, since we're disturbing more than 1 acre of existing ground, that permanent stormwater water quality would be required. I'm not sure, is that referencing a basin, like a permanent detention basin, or is it some sort of other mechanism to treat runoff?
So I believe that refers to, that threshold of an acre refers to state requirements around stormwater quality permits. I don't think that requires a change from the existing. But I think what we'll expect to see at the site plan and plat is that there would be utilization of an existing. There's a storm drain on the east side of Meller Street that drains across sort of this southern frontage on Erie Parkway and then to a regional drainage basin farther to the west. So I would expect that still would be the plan to convey stormwater that way. And so then the state requirements, I think, is a permit just to prove that the I think that the stormwater would not exceed what was previously calculated to be headed out towards that drainage basin. And then I think there's also a water quality component. So I don't know if there's, I guess
You are correct, yeah.
I'm speaking
Yeah.
a little bit on it.
I
probably
was
out of
just
turn.
curious, because obviously if it was tied into the existing system, has that quantity that's being added been accounted for? Or if a detention basin is required, obviously that's going to change the footprint potentially a fair amount.
Yeah, all of that would come at site plan. They do that
Understood.
level of calculation and analysis, and if there's any further public improvements that would need to be made.
But I doubt it would be much, any more than the daycare center would need.
Well, just because you're creating a large impervious surface.
Yeah.
And so, that's a question, I guess. I think that was it.
Okay. I'll start with the easy one first. You had mentioned Miguel And have you worked with John and Miguel about the traffic and pedestrian safety on like what potential mitigations they could do for an easement into this property?
Some, excuse me. So, sorry. So there is an existing traffic signal here with crosswalks, obviously across Meller and Erie Parkway. I think I don't know that we in our review any additional crossing need was identified except across obviously where you would enter into the site, and so also the existing vehicular access would be still located at this southern corner or southern side of the property. So there's no, because of intersection distancing requirements, we're not going to permit an additional egress or ingress off of Erie Parkway into the site. So there will have to be considerations of how pedestrians are crossing that drive access, that drive aisle that sort of leads into the site. But I think until we're a little further along into the site plan, we're not sure what those specific improvements would be.
Yeah, there were, again, a lot of comments about pedestrians on that road and making it pedestrian friendly. And the concern is if you just cut into the curb and then make it a place for cars and not for people, the cars will go in however fast they want to go. But if the cars know they're turning in and they need to look for pedestrians, I know there's decent sight lines in that area. So I think there's a good opportunity to build where that conflict, as we call it, happens, to make it a pedestrian friendly, make sure the cars know that it's there, and then they still have to cross Erie Parkway, which isn't pedestrian friendly at all. So expanding on Commissioner Booth and Salish's questions, in section 10.3.1, we have our table of permitted uses for community commercial. And in the food and beverage service that we have broadly allowed, there are permitted uses for a tavern and nightclub and restaurant, and also a restaurant with drive-through, but we've excluded drive-through. In the current way that it's written, a tavern and a nightclub could be put in. So I think there is value in restricting that. Also to Commissioner Dreckman's comment about limiting hours of operation. So is there, I know you haven't talked about that, but I think that would be the guardrails that we're talking about is expanding the limited uses, and that's one that could go in.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question, if you don't mind. I've heard from Commissioner Salish about the concern that if we move to the next step, there are, and we agree to certain things, and let's say we don't get off the ground for whatever reason, would not these restrictions still be in place for the next person, right? They would still be there as part of this amendment. So that would actually keep this in line with what we're discussing this evening. They wouldn't be able to come back in and put in an 18,000 square foot restaurant because we would say that's not something we're going to do here and now, right? That's the idea?
Yeah, it's
that's my
effective.
understanding, but I wanted to make sure. It sounded like there was some concern that somebody else could come in later on and alter things or come in with a different mindset and change the entire scope.
I'll let Commissioner Salish speak to his concerns, but
okay.
my concern is that I think maybe he was getting to that, but the tavern and nightclub are permitted.
Yeah.
And they aren't explicitly excluded. Right. So if, for example, you did have to sell this lot, a nightclub could technically, legally, it could go in there.
Yeah, but I think
they're asking if you're willing to.
Yeah, right. So the question is like, are we talking to exclude a nightclub or restrict hours of operations to make sure that it's part of the neighborhood?
And you don't have any issues with us adding that sort of into the...
I do not.
If we did a conditions. Okay. I'll keep sending it down. Anything else, Chair Broadus?
The main concern is the buffer that I have. And in a PD, you don't talk a lot about what has to happen in the buffer. And it seems, from what I'm hearing, that if this was going to go through, we would put a lot more restrictions in. And the question is, would we have time to list all those tonight in our resolution? If we're going to go that path. Is it, so I guess maybe, Canal, this is a question for you. Is it possible to carry this over? Or is that, or do we have to say yes or no tonight?
I would say, I mean, you could continue, but I would say we should, the commission should make a decision tonight.
Okay.
We are allowed to continue up to, I think, 60 days.
Yeah.
So we can.
Right.
Is that something different?
Yeah, that's for UDC amendments. It's
Oh.
totally different. It has to be date certain.
You would,
But
a date certain.
Yeah,
would
we
be great,
continue to a
and,
date
and
certain.
direction, clear direction on maybe what you wanted to see.
so if, when we get to deliberation, we can discuss that.
Okay. I'll wait for deliberation for my other issues because they're not really questions.
Okay. Commissioner Booth, do you have any?
I do have more questions.
Okay.
I think during the applicant's presentation, I think you talked about how it's zoned today, and how it's zoned today is not really feasible. Can you talk more to kind of your comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, we had, as far as my understanding is that it has been zoned for daycare for the better part of a decade. And there has been no operator that has been able, to come in and construct that from the ground up and find an operator who is viable and can continue that. Has not been available, nor does it seem viable. And then as far as more of a mixed housing perspective, the large builders around here can build single-family homes for less than it's going to cost, post-COVID for, relative to how much it costs to build that, and with interest and construction costs. It just does not pencil out for us. And maybe even if it did, it wouldn't bring in, it doesn't bring in the type of renter that maybe, would be the most desirable for that neighborhood, is sort of our perspective.
Okay. And then I think in the application materials, there was a statement in there that the proposed development will house small local businesses. They will serve residents in the surrounding neighborhoods. They will be compatible in scale to similar retail and commercial uses approximately a half to 1 mile east of the site. Are we talking about like Walgreens, that area, Erie Commons area?
Yeah, that's just further down Erie Parkway.
Okay. Okay.
Commissioner Sawish?
You want me to just run through the rest of them?
Sure.
Okay, for staff, just out of curiosity, where exactly in the PD does it note that any use that is in community commercial, except for those that are prohibited, are allowed on this, in this tract?
So that is at the bottom left-hand side of page 2, under the, I guess, Roman numeral 2 principal land use categories table. At the bottom of that, the first note is uses not specifically addressed in this table shall be allowed according to the land use table in the UDC for the CC zone district.
Okay, can you point me to that again? Where?
Should be the bottom left corner of page 2 of the PD.
Bottom left corner of page 2.
You're on the proposed PD amendment item.
On the, sorry, on the proposed PD amendment. On the
It
second
says
page.
note, and then it has
You're gonna have to
uses.
zoom.
It's
Yeah, you do.
small. Yeah, it is small. Sorry.
Okay, so this is basically a list of those that aren't allowed
For the most part, yes. Yeah.
If it has
So
a
it's-
Y,
There-
it is allowed.
there are a
It's-
couple-
It's confusing, I
So it's
admit.
everything
Yeah.
in CC that isn't with a
With
no
an N.
over here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's, and I will admit, so this is maybe not the simplest way to display this information. There's, on these older PD amendments, there's always sort of a balance between trying to maintain the existing sort of style that they're displaying this information and being able to update it. So I will admit, yeah, this table is probably not how we would show it in a brand new PD today, but it's sort of the legacy format we're working with from this Canyon Creek PD.
Okay, but we're doing an amendment, so we could hypothetically have filing, what is this, filing 5 with its own table that is straightforward. Because I believe correct me if I'm wrong, the former track that was community commercial is now wrapped in its own PD, which is the Erie Four Corners property.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so this basically is only to this property currently because that is not even applicable to that property anymore.
Correct.
Okay, so is that something that could be would that be something that the applicants and staff could work on potentially part of the technical updates to the PD where, and Mr. Brennan, I believe you said this, and I've past 5-6 years seeing these, it's been that way. It's what is allowed. It's not what isn't allowed. It is explicit in terms of what the current UDC says at that time, permitted uses, and it shows exactly what it is. Correct? Something like that?
I think that
We have a mix,
yes,
honestly.
yeah, it's sort of a mix. I think it is typical to have a list that is both the permitted and shows some lists or some items that are explicitly prohibited. But you're right.
Or
I
those
think
that require special review use.
Okay.
Too. Kind of mimicking our use table.
And hypothetically, if we were to update the UDC and we were to update the permitted uses within community commercial at any time, but this PD says whatever the UDC says is permitted, it could fluctuate over time because it's not static locked in the PD.
Correct.
Yeah.
It would, default to whatever the UDC says at the time.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That if this allowed land uses for CC was updated 5 years from now and it included some uses that we hadn't thought about today, because today we're referencing back to that CC, that is true that it could potentially change with the UDC.
Okay, now what happens if hypothetically we no longer have a CC? Then what would they reference?
Well, the CC, like if we were to do a new district, you would still have to translate that with the new code. So, I mean, it would still refer back to, we'd have to take whatever the CC district is. I'm not explaining this well. And translate that into new districts. And it does make it more difficult for staff to administer on the back end, honestly, because, then we're left going, well, what was the code back when we had CC? And what did that become, if that makes sense?
Where you get these artifacts of like RPUs,
Exactly.
2, 3,
Yeah.
Okay. So for the applicant, would that be something that you'd be amenable to list these out in terms of what it is what uses you do envision having there instead of having the whatever's in the CC less these things?
Yeah, I think that is something we're amenable to, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I know we've hopped around this, but the dimensional standards that are being requested. So we have on one side, we have everything that is in CC for the use cases. Now, when we're talking about the dimensional standards, we're looking at the neighborhood mixed use. Why was it that we looked at neighborhood mixed use versus community commercial for the dimensional standards?
I might sort of start from the opposite assumption. So I think we were thinking about this being sort of a similar condition to a typical neighborhood mixed use. However, we're not wanting residential here. So I think we started with the assumption that this was sort of a neighborhood mixed use context, and that's why we use that as the starting point for the dimensional standards. But we didn't want to use that for the allowed land uses because that also gets into residential uses. So that's why you're right. It is sort of a mix and match of what's in the UDC.
Okay, and if we look at the dimensional standards between the two, they're purposely set up in a way so that they fit that purpose. Like community commercial has, interior line setbacks versus NMUs do not, because of that proximity to the residential, because of how they're going to be sited. There's a purpose to the NMU on why we have some zero line setbacks versus community commercial does not.
There is, yeah, and so community commercial, I think, is often in Erie found along these big corridors where you have more of more land, more setback from streets, and more land to deal with. So it's often the sort of larger scale commercial development where it can accommodate bigger, wider landscape setbacks and things like that. And I think we took a look at this, and under 2 acres, we didn't think there was a real viable option to develop it under the CC setbacks.
Okay, and I understand for the applicant, we have very limited amount of land that is available here. What was the rationale, the reason for wanting to go down the path of a 0-foot setback? So basically, you can abut that property line on the residential side.
I don't think we have a zero.
No, so the 0 would be on Meller Street and Erie Parkway, and then it would always be a 20-foot minimum when you're abutting residential. So that would always be a 20-foot on the east and south
building,
side.
and then there was a question about maybe the actual asphalt to the parking lot was a little bit closer to, encroached on that 20 feet, which is something that's definitely reviewable. But I thought the buildings themselves had that 20-foot setback off of the south.
I'm looking at the side interior, side street. Both are listed as 0-foot setbacks. And on this is the application presentation.
Yeah, that's wrong. Like that's not what.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
In the staff presentation, there is the.
Yeah, what the staff presentation
has
is
but
more
it has
accurate.
on page
That's just
13 of the staff presentation. That might be more accurate.
But the proposed PD lists 0 feet for filing number 5.
But
I'm just saying.
It also lists side or rear when abutting a residential zone district is 20 feet.
That's in the table 4 on the same page too.
It's in
Covered in bubbles.
the right side,
Or
We're going through that, but here it was 20 feet.
bottom right.
okay, so we have side or rear abutting residential is 20 feet. Okay, so we do have 20 feet from the property lines on rear. So this is the south side, east side, and then we have the easements as well as setbacks on the Erie Parkway and Miller side.
Correct. Yeah, and that property line doesn't go all the way to the street either. So it's the sidewalk there is in the public right of way. So it would be a 0 foot. I guess on the diagram that's on screen here, that 0 foot would allow a building to come up to that property line on the north side and the west side.
Okay.
But
And
yeah.
do we allow, so this is setbacks for the actual building itself. Do we allow the parking spaces to enter into those easements and setbacks?
The way our
Yes,
setback
it's a building setback.
It's just building. So
Okay, so.
As it's currently written.
So knowing that we have to have some barriers for sight lines, for headlights, those kinds of things, really there is no, we won't have parking lots that are going up to the fence line right there, the property line, because we should have something that is extending that line to blockade from, block the backyards of those homes right there.
Correct.
Okay, is that something that the applicant would be willing to have in the PD, noting that even the parking lots would be X amount of feet away, knowing we're going to be using something to bury that off as it is?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in other municipalities, like often that's like dealt with as a landscaping requirement, for example, that, so maybe even though there is a setback, also there's a landscaping requirement, which would prevent the parking from, running all the way to the property line.
Harry, how would that, Mr. Brennan, how would that be addressed?
That could be probably worded in a couple of different ways. So I think, as just mentioned, that could be an additional standard that was a required landscape buffer, or it could be written into the PD that 20-foot setback from residential also applied to things like parking and driveways. The UDC already specifies that in those setbacks you can't put things like trash enclosures, but it doesn't say anything about parking. So I guess all that is to say there's probably a couple ways that we could word it, but that is something, if the applicant was open to it, we could work on.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to leave my comment about that to deliberation, but yes, thank you. Okay.
Real quick, Commissioner Solich, it's 8:15, so if we can.
Yes, last question. 35 feet. Obviously, this is what's requested as the maximum height. What is planned currently conceptually? Obviously, this is concept plan. What is currently planned in terms of the number of stories?
Single story, 20-foot height.
Okay. But again, hypothetically, if this weren't to actually get off the ground and it then were to be, ownership were to change to somebody else, they could build a 2-story building there that could be up to 35 feet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a question for ownership, whether you'd be willing to.
Well, I don't know if that question's been
codify.
asked, but it sounds to me like that is a correct statement. Hypothetically, that is a possibility moving forward for somebody else to come in. That is definitely not our intention.
Okay, if obviously it's not your intention, would you be amenable to potentially lowering that maximum height limit from 35 feet to something that is obviously, single story, but is within what you have planned? And I know architecturally you can do something completely different, but that way, again, we don't have the risk of it coming in and a 2-story now falling through.
We can commit to a single-story building that is under that height restriction.
Okay, and that can be also added to the PD, I assume, Mr. Brennan?
It could, yeah.
Okay. All right, those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Dreckman, any?
Nope, no more questions.
Commissioner Burns?
It's just for deliberation.
I had something, but I don't think it was that important, so nothing for you. You're good, Commissioner Burns?
I have one more question, and it's about the entrance into, and this may have been addressed, and maybe I was studying my questions and didn't hear it. The only entrance in there is going quite a bit of ways down Meller Street to get into that development. I understand the limitations of Erie Parkway, but if I think about Town Center just a little bit further down the road, they are making right-way enters into that. You can actually cross Erie Parkway to get into that development. Was there any thought, or I just hate it going so far into a residential to get into that space.
I don't think that there would be any real way to make any sort of full movement off of. I guess what I should say is that we certainly could talk about it with our transportation engineers. I think it would be likely impossible to get any kind of safe full movement access onto Erie Parkway. Whether there could be some kind of exit only, like right in, or I guess that wouldn't be an exit only, a right in, right out, or an exit only with only a right out. I think we could certainly evaluate that and see if it could be done safely.
Just something to think about with the right in, right out.
Yeah.
At least I know some of the other complications that are there, but just wanted to mention that. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. The time is now 8:20 p.m. and I'm closing the public hearing and into commissioner deliberation. Who wants to start? Commissioner Burns, I saw your hand because I looked that way.
So I wanted to just relate a personal anecdote about having a kind of commercial in the middle of residential. 20 years ago, I lived in Denver, and in an area, my house was almost 100 years old back then, so it's a little bit over that now, in Congress Park. And where my bus stop was 2 blocks away, and there was a commercial center that was right on the intersection of 12th Street and Madison Street, and right in the middle of the neighborhood. It literally abutted houses that were probably close to the same 100-year-old bungalows and shared fences and such. They were all local businesses, small businesses. There was a pizza place, a hair salon, there was a coffee shop. There's even a yarn shop that had knitting nights. It was odd, I thought, but they were small local businesses, and I think that's kind of what you're getting towards. Not like Town Center, which is, I think, much more franchisey kind of commercial geared. It was a tremendous thing to have in our neighborhood, and I just wanted to bring that up in the sense of, I know it's a concern when you're bringing in this kind of commercial, because you're bringing in people from outside the neighborhood coming through your block. But it can be a tremendous addition to the neighborhood. This lot here doesn't seem like it's anyone really wants to do much with it. Sure, an open space would be great. I think that ideally these kind of small businesses here could be a great benefit to this location. And so I guess my message is just I wouldn't be afraid of it just because it's a commercial site. It can be something very interesting and cool, especially for the people who are living right next to it. And that's just from my personal experience.
Vice Chair Broadus?
Okay. In a lot of ways, we're missing what I consider the elephant in the room, which is if this was something new, the whole development and the whole PD was new development, I don't think we'd be having this discussion. I think the issue is the impact on existing residents. And so I think it's really important that we address the concerns that we've heard as far as having a reasonable buffer, lighting, hours of operation, things like that. And I think without that, it's going to be, for me, difficult to approve something. I try to put myself in the position of the residents that are there now and know how I would feel if this happened. So I definitely agree having residential and mixed use, rather, is a good thing. We're doing that a lot of places now. And I think that's actually helps a lot of things in the neighborhood. But there are legitimate concerns we've got to deal with. And that's where I'm at on it.
I can go, sure. My opinion is fairly short. I think the intention is there from the town. I think the developer is the right developer for what the town wants there. But I think further amendments to the PUD, like we've mentioned, are necessary just to protect the neighborhood. If you don't want to sell it, we don't want another developer, but I think you can't really just put faith in that. So if I was making the decision, I would, say okay, but there needs to be, you know, operating hours to make, you know, because like, you know, 8 p.m. or whatever is appropriate for children, and then no bar, tavern, nightclub, the landscaping buffer requirements, less parking, and then, you know, specifically mentioning the allowed uses and the prohibited uses, and then the single story. And I just think if those aren't in place, like, I think the intention is there, but I just think it needs to be spelled out.
Commissioner Salish.
So thank you, and thank you, staff. I know this is probably the most questions we had on an application in a while. First application we've seen in a while too, but you have the unfortunate luck, if you will, of the first of potentially many of infill commercial development coming to already mature neighborhoods in the community. And I have driven by this property countless times. I've known about the history of what they have wanted there at times. It was going to be a daycare, and then it was going to be townhomes, and then it was going to be, you know, so this is the next evolution. I do see this as a good fit for this site. However, that does not mean that a blank slate can just be completely blank and saying from wall to wall you can do whatever you want. If it is going to fit in here, it does need to fit within that area. A lot of the questions that I have, a lot of what Commissioner Dreckman just said, is we need to have these guardrails in place. We need to have the ability to say, if we go another 10 years where there's nothing built on here and somebody comes and says, I want to activate this property, there's still those guardrails, and we're not sitting in that same position, or 10 years later, these residents or those who are now in that neighborhood come and say, I didn't know that this was possible. I do think that we need to make a decision on this. However, Commissioner Vice Chair Broudis, I am in the same boat as you, where I think there's a little bit more that needs to be done to really get this solidified on this document to say this is what is going to be there. And yes, I understand it's conceptual, and I understand that this is not the last decision. It's not going to be that we or council approves this and then it's there. I do also believe that there should be conditions just because of where this is and the impact on the surrounding neighborhood, that for the site plan, it should require planning commission review. We can make a recommendation for that, but obviously the applicant would have to agree to that as well, because currently it is an administrative review unless the director decides to do otherwise. So that would be something that I would like to see as a condition for approval. I would like to see those allowed uses, not anything that is under the sun except for these prohibited. I want to see what you conceptually, you have something in mind. What is it that you envision being there? And then list those out. And yeah, there could be some gray area where it could fit these, maybe not, but not having it where everything can fit there. The setbacks for the parking, because just like my commissioners up here were saying, like, there are areas where you can say exactly where this is. I know this area over here, my first home was at Lowell and Midway, and my townhome was basically 5 feet of a sidewalk, a fence, and then here was a Conoco. And it was great. I could walk over there and I could get, a snack, a drink. But at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., you would have 15 PD cars out there because they're arresting a whole bunch of people. So we don't want it so that it's that situation in this mature area. That isn't what is envisioned here. I do see these other individuals that have stood up and saying, I do see this as a benefit. Sometimes these are actually a benefit, but if it is going to be a benefit, it has to fit in there, and it has to be something that the neighbors say this could work instead of a blank slate. also, the single story, adding that in to the PD, or potentially lowering that 35-foot height requirement to require it to be single story. And the question I have is if this is a lot of conditions for us to put into an approval, or if we should potentially continue so that staff and the applicant can work on updating the PD to list all these things that are amenable to the applicant. So that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Booth.
I don't have a lot to add. Again, I will say thank you to the residents for coming out. This is really the most questions that we've had, and this one is a really challenging one for me. Town center is coming right, to me, it feels like just a few blocks down. To Commissioner Sawash's point, it really has to fit into that neighborhood if there's something that's going to go in there. The walkability, I think we've mentioned several times, we talk about walkability a lot, but then again, we throw in all that parking, which I know is you just adhering to what we have in our code. I think that there's some of the things that we didn't really talk about up here is the pedestrian safety components. I don't know if there's something that happened. I do notice the orange flags that are there. I don't know if there was something that warranted that to be there, but I think that needs to be taken into consideration as well. But I agree with everything. I think that there has to be several conditions, and I don't know the best way to do that, but there would have to be several conditions for me to give an approval tonight.
Then I'll take the final comment. I do really like the idea. I think there's a great opportunity here, and having something that is local is, as Commissioner Burns mentioned, really could be an advantage. But putting the guardrails that this commission has talked about, I think will give a lot of, it'll make the residents understand that it's going to be a place that fits in. I think as we talked about conditions, I would want to see a condition where we don't have parking minimums and that supersedes. That will give the applicant a lot more opportunity to not put pavement on this entire thing, make it walkable, make it friendly to pedestrians. Because our parking minimums, they comply with it. This is what this site would have to be without that. So that would have to be a condition for me. The setbacks, I don't have a really strong opinion. I'm fine with the site plan review because right now we're at 17,000 feet, but if we remove parking minimums, we could be close to 22,000 feet and it's still low. So if we enforce or have the applicant, I don't know the mechanism for that, but if we have a site plan for the planning commission to give final public comment, because if this is the last time the public has an opportunity here, that's not going to be a good time. So I think also to Commissioner Salish's point of having these are the allowed uses table instead of the disallowed uses, so reworking the PD to say we're allowing restaurants, but or explicitly restaurants, and then maybe we even have a line that says no drive-throughs, and effectively working it into you're allowed to build this here into the site plan. And happy with the height reduction, 35. I don't know the exact numbers for buildings, but we did like a 22-foot total height. I don't know if that works with making sure there's a little wiggle room with architecture. I've asked for things to get taller in my line of work, and luckily they've been able to accommodate that. But if it can't, then that's the limit. So I think from the sounds of it, we're all in agreement that there need to be changes. At a bare minimum, this is approved with conditions, but the real structure is how we implement those conditions for us to do that approval. Is that, I guess, moving to staff, is that something that we would be part of the continuation and clear direction of the things we've talked about? Or do we just have a laundry list of conditions on our approval motion?
Yeah, so the commission can decide, either option. I think if you guys have the conditions and we can get it on the resolution and approval, then that's something the staff can work on before it goes to town council. Or if you want it to continue it until a date certain, and then staff works with the applicant to get all the information, then it comes back to you. So it's kind of your guys' decision.
When is it scheduled to be in for town council?
It is not yet.
Oh, okay. So it's not like we need to do it by next week.
My fear with approving with conditions is the affordable housing approval, that we had all those conditions. It was really, I think they said it was so confusing when they read it. So that's my concern with approving it with conditions and not just saying like, either we don't or.
Yeah, I think the issue with
Because I
that.
have like 7, and I think Heather mentioned a few more, so I just don't see how feasible that is for legal to be like, here's 7 paragraphs, but maybe they approve it with, like.
Yeah, I think
That's my opinion.
Yeah, the difference I think is with the affordable, it ended up, the wording of what ended up being was a denial.
Right.
With conditions, which you can't do. So if the commission is going to do the conditions today, it just needs to be clear that you are approving the PD and then with these conditions.
Recommending.
Recommending approval.
If I'm not mistaken, I mean, the recommendation that we're providing is just a recommendation to council.
Yeah.
They don't have to approve it as written.
Yes.
Or reject it.
Right. Yes.
They can take what pieces. So I think that
Yeah.
in terms of conditions, we can always put whatever we think we want, and then they can take out what they wrote on. So I don't know that I would worry about that.
I just mean getting this whole group to agree on exactly.
Right, what are the
and
conditions?
The wording, and it just seems
Yeah, and
optimistic.
And some of this isn't for us to
Right.
to develop the wording. This
Yeah.
is
Right.
the applicant and staff are going to have to put pen to paper and do this.
Right.
And then, yeah, and I don't want us to be sitting up here personally. I don't want us to be sitting up here putting all these conditions in there when staff is then going to have to do that. So I would be fine with continuing to a date certain if that's if the applicant is amenable to that.
Yeah, and the return process is we work with staff, and then do we come back?
Yeah.
Just from a
Yes.
procedural standpoint.
I'll leave it to the assistant town attorney to provide that.
Yeah, so staff would work with obviously the commissioners to make sure what the conditions were, and then once those conditions are put in and you guys are ready to reappear in front of the commission, then we can. They're going to be date certain, so just to be prepared by that date.
Because I guess one other concern I have is we've talked about a lot of things. I think that some of these things that we might be considering as conditions are really more applicable to site plan development or beyond, and maybe not to this discussion with the amendment for the PD amendment.
Agreed.
A lot of what you've talked about would be in the PD, which regulates how the site plan is
Okay, I just want to
developed.
because
Yeah.
we've gone pretty deep for
Right.
something that doesn't really exist in
Yeah.
terms of a site plan.
In order to have enough time and for notice and all of that, it would probably be the earliest, the second meeting in February 18th, if you're looking for a date certain. Mhm.
And is that enough time? You said that's time for staff to resolve all this?
To consider it. Revise.
Like I said,
It gives us a couple weeks to work with the applicant and get things cleaned up and what you want to see, and then allows for the notice to go out.
Sooner than
as
6
needed.
weeks.
I would think it's enough time, and then we can, if it's not for any reason, then at that continued hearing, we would continue it further, but
Yeah.
I think it's enough time. If the
If-
applicant feels that way, or if that date works for the applicant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it does for sure.
Robert's rules.
Would that require a new notification for the neighbors and whatnot as well?
It doesn't, if we continue it to a date certain, we
To a
do
date
not
certain.
have to renotice it.
You're correct.
Correct.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. Let's give everybody time to flesh things out, really put pen to paper, talk it through, and make sure we're as closely aligned as possible.
Does anyone up here disagree with that?
No, I greatly appreciate your flexibility for doing that.
For the process of that, do we need to give that clear direction of?
Yeah, so I just want to again, just one caution before the commission makes a decision is the risk with continuing and having staff and applicant work this way is they put in all this work, we continue it, the commission continues for 6 weeks, then the recommendation happens, and then town council, determines not to, follow any or some of the conditions. And so that's just something also to consider.
I mean, we can't control that, though.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
I
That's
don't
true. I'm
think
just
it
saying
gets
that
approved
is.
if we don't do it.
Yeah.
That's
I don't
exactly
think
what
it's
happened with the
approved.
affordable housing.
Exactly, yeah. But the difference in that was we did the conditions here, rather than, but we actually continued it
staff.
first and then we did conditions.
Right.
Yeah, so that was a little bit different.
And some of this appears to be technical amendments to the PD amendments, which obviously we can't have the conditions of a PD amendment in that it has to be that applicant and the staff come back and say, these are going to be added in, so that when it goes to council, it's actually in there for them to look at and
Right,
review.
yeah.
So, okay.
That's a good point.
And I do think continuing, I'd assume at the presentation for the council, you talk about the extra work that was put in after this meeting.
Yeah, that would be
so-
explained, yeah.
I think there is value, and like I said, I think we're all in agreement that we're not approving this without conditions. So I
Yeah.
think that's pretty clear here.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be good, let's give clear direction to staff, because it sounds like we're going to continue to a date certain, but they need the direction of what we are adding, and let's make sure we all agree with that, so when it comes to us next, we can have a quicker meeting.
Okay. I got 4 items that are on here. I know that there's a few others. We were saying condition, site plan, requiring planning commission review, not the administrative review, because it would be under 25,000 feet if, of course, applicant is amenable to that. It gives another bite at the apple for residents to see what is actually envisioned before it actually gets approved.
Real quick, while we're going through that, let's
Please.
just make sure everyone is happy with that.
Yep,
Yes.
good so far.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Having a list of permitted uses, not a list of not permitted uses. So permitted uses for this site based on what is envisioned for this property. Okay.
I like the I like both. I think, saying like restaurant, not drive through,
No
saying-
nightclub.
So,
Okay with that.
so you're saying having both on there.
Yeah, just like if you're reading through a conservation easement, it would have allowed uses and prohibited uses. And I think that in this instance, since we're so focused on like, it cannot be these things, I think both. I know that's more work, but I think both.
The question becomes, if it's on neither list, what does it count as?
It's prohibited. If it's not on, if it's
If
not
it's
on the
not
list, it's
allowed.
prohibited.
I think you would say prohibited including, and then you would spell out the prohibited uses
Yeah.
like the tavern.
But we should probably put in a sentence saying,
Yeah.
if it's not on here, it is
But
prohibited.
that's for the town, I think,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
legal to decide, right? I just like,
Yeah.
I think putting prohibited uses is pretty important.
Yeah, I like that as well.
Okay.
Okay, does everyone like permitted and prohibited uses here? Okay.
Residents get to talk again when that
No.
comes up?
No, unfortunately not.
When it goes
Then
to,
I think you should vote on.
There's no
goes to council.
discussion with the public, I'm sorry.
I want conditions.
the setbacks for parking. so that we have the setbacks for the siting of the building, but then the distance from the lot lines for the parking as well, how far they can go, and that was another one.
Any concerns with parking setbacks as well as building
Sounds good.
setbacks?
I agree.
There was the height requirements or single-story requirement,
Whatever
whichever.
makes sense for staff and applicant to build
Correct.
in. Okay.
Less parking?
Sorry?
Less
just-
parking?
Parking minimum.
Well,
Yeah.
we're doing one at a time, so everyone's happy with the height.
Sorry.
Yeah, parking's already on the list, wasn't it?
Hasn't made it there yet.
Well, that was the actual parking, the siting of the parking, but there was the no minimum parking requirements, but saying that the maximum parking would be whatever UDC code, requires. So basically, anywhere from very little to, what we require,
Because
essentially.
the maximum parking is like 20% more, or something like that. So
Hundred and
just-
25% is what we
100.
allow in
So
the
just
code.
saying that there's no parking minimum, but
Yeah.
there's a parking maximum per the code? Are we
Correct.
happy with?
Yeah, something to that effect, yeah. And see, a traffic assessment is already going to be required for the site plan, so we don't need to have that. Was there anything else?
I have a couple.
I have 5. Did you have? Go ahead.
So there was the lighting and the landscape buffer. Now, landscape buffer may be, I don't know if that's in a PD or if that's only in the site plan.
It would be in the PD.
Okay, so landscape buffer.
Do you want, so we have the setbacks for the parking. Do you want us to detail it that it must be a landscape buffer?
Well, yeah, because I think it's important, and it's up to the commission to decide, but I think it's important to have a visual buffer, if you will. And so it goes with the lighting, too.
If we have a landscape buffer, we don't need a parking buffer then.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same. I think
We
it's-
typically do a landscape
I
buffer.
think that could be one. I don't know.
For staff, what makes, does
got
the
it.
parking setback, you?
Yeah,
I got it.
she said she.
Okay.
she said she-
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay.
I would like more clarity on what prohibited uses. I know you said
Taverns and nightclubs?
taverns and nightclubs, but are there others that you would like to see beyond what was previously listed?
I personally don't have strong feelings of what should be listed out. I'd like the applicant to bring that
Okay.
forward, but
Yeah, I think your list of prohibited uses that are on there is a good start.
Okay.
I don't think we have any issues with the current prohibited uses.
Okay.
So if that doesn't overlap, we don't need a helipad there. I saw that one as
Yeah.
specifically not allowed. So
Okay.
Good to know.
Okay.
But I don't know if there's any other prohibited uses that,
That's why I think it's redundant, but it's all right.
yeah, I understand. That captures what I had. Did you have any, Commissioner Burns?
I didn't have anything. Does that cover your list?
Just the hour, like, I'm, just
Commissioner
the hours was, but I don't know if that's not I'm not dying on that hill, so.
How do we,
I just think since it was a
restricting,
concern for late, I mean,
Yeah.
like operating out, like I would say open to the public hours, I guess, but I think that's, because he said that could be included. I don't know if it has to be, but just since it's a big concern that at night it will be loud, that would be a way to avoid that.
yeah, I'm not sure. I understand the sentiment.
But again, like I'm not married to that.
I think, at least in my mind, there's value in having the applicant and staff work on what makes sense there. And if it doesn't make sense, that, I don't know.
maybe we can say that, something that applicant and staff discuss and bring back to us with a recommendation of include or not,
Great, love that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
That makes
Thank
sense,
you.
'cause we don't want to make it so restrictive it becomes impossible to fulfill.
Yeah, no, I agree. That sounds good.
Please.
Again,
Right.
you're the lucky individuals to be on the
It
front
feels
edge
that
of this, so.
And Any other comments? Because I think Kelly, have we given you clear direction?
Mm-hmm. Carrie, do you have any questions?
So we will need a motion to continue to a date certain, and you said the February 18th. Does that work with your calendar?
That works.
And that works with staff. So who wants to make a motion?
Motion to continue 2026-1 to date certain of February 18th, 2026.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Does anybody want a roll call vote? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. So we will revisit this on February 18th.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll do that in the next staff report.
Oh, no, we actually have.
We still have to be
Reports.
here.
Staff.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And thank you all for coming out.
Chair Hemphill, do you want to remind them that this is the first stage?
There's other opportunities to comment.
There will be public comment at the next.
Town council.
At council?
Yeah,
But
just
not-
for everyone who came in tonight, thank you again for participating. This will go to town council. You'll see the yellow sign out on the property. So when we see this in February, after that resolution potentially passes, you'll see there'll be a town council meeting where you'll be able to make a comment to town council, who has final authority.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that concludes,
This is
or the
it.
time is now 8:50. Sorry for, well, it's everyone's fault. We've concluded general business and we'll move on to staff reports. No specific items on staff reports, except I did ask that you.
Yeah, we had a special meeting with council last night. One of the items was the comp plan.
Can you hold
Council
on
had.
1 sec? It's loud.
It is loud.
Thank you.
Yeah. Council had some questions about density as it relates to particular properties. So the site at 111th and Arapahoe Gateway and what's known as Golden Run or Aaron Harbor's property. We talked through that with them extensively and received direction to create an additional residential category that would have a density range of 6 to 12, and to apply that to the 111th and Arapahoe site. The other sites, we talked through, and they didn't want to see any land use designation changes for those. This will all go through the same process that we did for the comp plan. So we will have public engagement. We will engage with those property owners. It will come back to you all for recommendation and then go to council for approval or not.
6 to 12 roughly correlates to what with the old comp plan?
Yes, that is the old residential medium designation.
Okay.
So I watched that medium low and medium high was the idea, if I understand it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I mean, some communities have 20 different residential zoning classes.
Yeah, I mean, land use plans are meant to be not as granular as zoning, but I understand the concern and why they wanted it.
So the direction is to modify the comprehensive plan.
Yes.
Effectively.
Yeah, and then we did talk a little bit too about adding some more policies to do with guiding sensitivity, like the conversations we had here today with infill development, where it may impact. In particular, the discussion was more around rural residential because we have a lot of that on the edges. But you know, it could apply to situations like we see here. So tonight.
Gonna be the only thing left soon.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that will all come to you all at some point. We don't have a schedule yet, so
You
still working
didn't
on
come up with a schedule and
not
24 hours
in, you know,
had?
24 hours. No, sorry.
On the advance agenda, actually, the 6 weeks from today, there's something about comp plan?
Yes, Josh was going to come talk to you all about Old Town and the findings of that first phase of things. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then.
And we do have, Melinda will be joining us again, but on the other side, to talk through some UDC changes for the sign code at our next meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
You got the advanced agenda out, so thank you
Yes.
for getting that out. Also note, we have a quasi judicial list on the website now.
We do.
So we won't be, I'm expecting we're not getting emails anymore. Or maybe we are with like the attached PDF.
That monthly
Or-
report, yeah.
But
Yeah.
maybe just having I think having a link to click on that so it's easy for us to find. Because I know I regularly search quasi judicial in Outlook.
No, it actually, I like the way it was highlighted too.
Okay.
So
We can
just,
do both.
Yeah, we can do
just
that.
for reference to everyone, that list is now on the website, and when we get public comments, just be aware of that.
One request is, I don't know if it made it to you or not, having a expand all button. So to expand the 7 different categories or whatever.
So I asked that of communications, and it makes for a exceedingly long web page
Yeah.
when you have them all expanded. So I wondered if us, sending you all monthly the one sheet would be sufficient, and then you can go in, if you want to see on the web page specific categories, click on the.
Whatever works for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the monthly email just as a reminder
Okay.
of what I can and can't talk about in public.
Sure.
And I have expanded it all and looked at it, so. It's,
Yeah.
Any other?
I think our communications team, they get sensitive about website design and yeah.
Anything else?
Nope.
For staff? All right. Time is now 8:57. Finish off commissioner reports and discussion. Who wants to start?
Just hope everyone had a great holiday.
Commissioner Booth?
I got nothing.
Commissioner Salish?
Nothing.
Commissioner Dreckman? Commissioner Burns? I didn't write anything down. So that concludes everything on our agenda. So Commissioner Booth?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I don't think that's a real vote anyway, but time is now 8:57 PM and we are adjourned.